Sure.
Yeah, my brother.
How y'all doing?
Hey, Randy. Good, good.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
It's funny. I
Well,
forgot they could. I forgot they could hear us. I'm running on about comic books and stuff. I didn't realize they could hear us talking.
we
They,
listening. We listening.
right. They hear everything.
Yeah, Senghor. I just gave. My son, young Mike. I just
Yeah.
gave some a collection of about what was it, 6, 7 or 8 toys that I had bought for him when he was young. And what's the black superhero from back in the day?
From which universe? Which
Oh, I
DC,
don't know.
Marvel? You know.
I don't know. He
What's his
well, it begins with
superpower?
the S. Begins with the S. He was he the one that got into a fire or something, and then he got his superpowers.
Oh, it must be talking about Spawn from Image.
Spawn.
Spawn, that's it.
Spawn. Yes.
Spawn.
Todd
Yeah,
McFarlane. Yep.
I had quite a few of them that they were still in the package. I bought them for him when he was young, and never took them out of the packages. So
Oh,
I mean, I don't know.
nice.
Yeah, so he got him a nice little collection of Spawn. I sent it to him in Chicago, not too long ago.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm sure he's loving those.
Oh yeah, well, he asked for them. He told me to go through his Hot Wheels and see if I find any red line Hot Wheels in there, So red
Oh,
time,
yeah. Yep.
yeah, but whatever.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
uh,
All right.
just one quick one for you, Rashaun. Um, I like what you said you were doing for your alma mater, and that was really great. That's the reason I'm on the call. Well, because you two are two of my favorite artists, whose art I can't afford, but anymore. But I have a nephew who went there also, and I don't know, Corey. Name was Corey Hamilton. I don't know if you would know him or not.
I'm
But
familiar.
he's a grad from there, as was his dad. His dad is on the board of directors at NCCU. Is George Roland Hamilton, and of course, they went the right way. Not that you went the wrong way, but we're a family of noobs over here, man. But I'm real. That was a wonderful thing that you kind of set up, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey,
Are you guys
and,
ready to get started?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thank you for everyone for joining this conversation between Rashaun Rucker and Senghor Reid, which has already started. But today we'll be we'll be just having sort of an open conversation about these two artists who use different mediums to explore personal narratives within their work. I'm not going to be moderating the conversation, but I do want to introduce you to both the artists participating. It's an abbreviated introduction. You can find out more information on both of them on our website. And Rashaun Rucker, North Carolina native, who currently resides in Detroit. He is coming to us from his prestigious international studio and curatorial practice residency in New York. Rashaun is an Emmy-winning photographer, printmaker, drawer, and storyteller. He's a Kresge recipient, and his current exhibition, Up from the Red Clay, closes this weekend. So if you haven't seen it, you should try to come in. Senghor is born and raised in Detroit. He's artist in residence at Cranbrook Schools and is a painter and visual artist that explores interactions between the human body and the environment. Reid completed the marathon program at the New York Studio School of Drawing, Painting, and Sculpture in New York. He's also a Kresge Fellowship winner, and his exhibition, Shadowboxing, opens in the gallery on May 21st. We expect this conversation will probably last about an hour, but who knows, with you guys. And we'll have some time for Q&A towards the end. If you would like to submit a question, you can send it to me directly, and we'll take whatever we have time for. I'm now going to open it up to Rashaun and Senghor.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Melannie. We really appreciate this and you putting this together. Rashaun and I had talked about this months ago, And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I had big dreams of, I thought we would have like a whole talk show and like a stage, and I, I always dream big. Like, I want the whole pomp and circumstance to go along with it. But this is great. Thank you so much. This is better than what I had imagined. This is awesome. So I don't know. I know we talked about as far as format is concerned, like sort of talking about Rashaun's show, which is currently on exhibition at the gallery, and then sort of roll into talking about my upcoming solo exhibition. I want to start with when just talking a little bit about uh, when I first met Rashaun. I was teaching at Cass Technical High School, and I remember hearing from probably a colleague that there was this famous photographer from the newspaper downstairs talking to our students. And I was like, well, I want, my students to be involved. That's always great when you have a guest speaker. That means I don't have to teach that day. I can just take my kids down to see the speaker. And Rashaun was there. I remember very vividly, we had, I don't know, man, we had a ton of kids packed in that room. It was like 3 or 4 classrooms combined in there. And Rashaun showed his photography, and I remember you showed pictures of boxers. I remember that was one of your series, and there's another series I think that you won an Emmy for. And I'm glad I double checked. I was about to say that you had won a Pulitzer, and I went back and checked on my Acura. I had to fact check. I was like, don't put that out there. But
Tried, man. I missed out on that one a
you
few
missed out on
different times. Yeah.
And so I wanted to just start because I'm curious to know, because it's something we haven't really reflected on. Tell me about your transition from photography. I feel like not enough people know that you are a master photographer, Emmy award-winning photographer. You worked for the newspaper for years, and that was like your original training. It seems like. So what has the transition been like to expand your practice across a variety of mediums?
It's actually funny because I remember that day really well. And
Mm-hmm.
you had like a lab coat thing on, like a white coat.
Yeah. Yep.
You were wearing, and they had like 4 or 5. Man, it was a lot of kids. They shoved like 100 kids into a room.
Yeah.
And I was giving this presentation, but I remember at the end I stopped Senghor because they were like, "Oh, he's the art teacher," and I was like, "Hey man, hold on, I draw too." Like I was talking to you instantly about art. I was like,
yep.
I was like, I want to meet you because like I draw too. Like I print make, I do some other things, and it was in college. I was a fine arts major in North Carolina Central, and we had a museum there, and I was always into drawing and printmaking, but I really got seriously focused on it when we had a retrospective of Charles White's work at Central. This was 20-something years. This was well before MoMA, well before any of these things where people were like, oh my God, we rediscovered Charles White. Like I knew Charles White was a master artist a long time ago, like other people did. And so I kind of really got super focused on drawing and printmaking. And it just so happened, in most colleges, they have at the end of the year that one time a year where students get to get into the museum. It's like, we're going to have our student show. Like you have at Cranbrook, it's like you get that one chance to be in the museum once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a drawing in there, and there was a photography professor on campus, and you didn't actually have to take photography. It wasn't a part of the art curriculum. It was actually in the communications and journalism department. And he came in there and he sought me out and he said, "You drew that?" And I was like, "Yeah." It's like, "I want you to take my photography class in the summer." And I was like, I can't afford no more classes. I'm already like Pell Granting myself to death and loans and, paying my own way through school and working. And he said, "Just come sit in the class." I was like, "I don't have a camera." He said, "Come sit in the class. I'll give you my camera. You can use it for the summer." And so he gave me a camera he had, and I took some pictures and I did all the assignments. I thought I did okay. It wasn't great, like by any stretch of the imagination. I was taking pictures of kids playing basketball on the blacktop, things like that. And at the end of the summer, he said, I got a friend who has a photojournalism internship at the newspaper. I want you to go interview for it. And it happened to be my hometown paper. So I'm like, dude, this would be God sent. If I could get this job, I could be at home. I could make a little money, have money for school next year. And I went to the interview and I had my photos from the class and I showed them to the guy. His name was Charlie Buchanan. I love Charlie to death. And he was like, he didn't want to say it sucked. Like he was trying to be nice about it. And he was like, well, can you show me anything else? And I was like, I got a drawing portfolio on my car. He was like, well, go get it. And I went and got it and I showed him all these drawings. And he was like, it looked good. It looked real good, but I'm not sure. He said, but guess what? My wife teaches drawing at Salem College. He was like, let me take it home and show it to my wife. And so the next day he called me and I was like, hey, Charlie, what's going on? He was like, my wife said I should hire you based on that drawing portfolio she saw.
Not the photography.
So he literally taught me everything, him and the staff there, everything I knew about photography, like doing that summer internship.
Wow.
And they made sure they helped me get another internship, which took me to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution the next summer.
Beautiful.
So it started off as drawing and printmaking, and it just, somewhere I took a left turn, man. And like I had an internship program with the New York Times my senior year. And I remember my granddad was like, so what you gonna do for a living? I was like, I'm gonna be an artist. And he was like, well, what about the photography thing? Like, you know, it's funny because in our community, a lot of times, especially Black community, they don't really see art as this like gateway for you to be successful. So everybody in my family was kind of like, oh God, this dude's gonna be starving, living in our house forever, and he ain't gonna never become anything. So I told my granddad, I was like, maybe I'll try the news photography thing. And even he couldn't fathom that as a job at the time. It was like, ain't nobody gonna pay you to take pictures. Cause like you're talking to somebody who grew up during the Great Depression. Like if it ain't hard work, it's not a real job to them.
Right.
He just like, I can't even fathom somebody paying you to take pictures. And so I ended up coming for an interview with the Detroit Free Press and getting the job. And I remember telling my family, I was like, I got a job at the Detroit Free Press. And it was a huge deal. They don't hire nobody fresh out of college. Like that was like a kind of abnormal thing for them to do at the time. And I was so excited. And I remember like my grandparents simultaneously both at the same time said, it got benefits? And I said, yeah. They was like, all right, take it. It was like all they cared about was like the healthcare aspect. Right. It wasn't like nothing else. It was just like, dude, this got benefits? Okay, take it. And I remember like, I think I was getting like $29,000, which I thought was like, bro, you can't tell me nothing. I thought that was a ton of money.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when being in North Carolina, that was as much money as my mother was making at the time as a school teacher. And so I was really excited. And I remember I drove to Detroit, man. I had an 81 Impala with a busted radiator. I drove to Detroit. My grandparents gave me $300 to get to Detroit. I had $300. I was going to stay with my uncle in Detroit. And I had like 15 gallons of water in the trunk. So every time the heat light would come on, I would pull over and fill it up with more water and antifreeze until I got to Detroit.
Wow.
And then as soon as I got there, the car died like 3 days later.
Right.
And my uncle helped me, you know, he let me use, he had an old 2-seat Ford Ranger, like one of my old pickup trucks. And I drove that for like a year until I kind of got on my feet. And I was like, you know, man, this $200 going to have to take me a ways, because back then you had to, you know, you had to work in the hole. I don't know if they do that now. It's like if you got paid every 2 weeks, you didn't get paid till like 4 weeks.
Right.
You had to work in the hole. So I was like, oh my God, man, I got $200, no car. Thank God. I'm sleeping at my uncle's house. And I was sleeping on the bottom bunk of my cousin's bunk bed. He slept on the top. He was like in middle school. And it was like, that was literally how I started, man, until I could like get myself on my, you know, my own feet and like, you know, spend that first hard year at the Free Press, which was hard because I came in there and they had really iconic photographers at the time, you know, Hugh Grantham and like all these other people. And Hugh Grantham hugged me when I came to the door and he was like, I'm so glad to see you, brother. Because like in his mind, I think he was like, man, you like the first Black photographer they hired like almost since me, since like the 70s. And so he, you know, he like, you know, really took me under his wing and like, and helped me and stuff. And, you know, I always like love him for that. And I remember about halfway through that year, man, I was crying at work one day. I was like in tears, and I was like, man, I think they hired the wrong person. Like I'm not really qualified for this, because like I said, I was fresh out of school, and they just throw you in a big city market. I mean, my first photo assignment at the Free Press was a woman who killed her child burning it with cigarettes.
Oh, wow.
Like that was like day 2 of my job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I don't really know if I'm cut out for this. Like this might not be my thing. And I remember talking to the director, and she was like, you know, just relax, chill out, whatever. Like, and she said, I didn't hire you for right now. I hired you for 5 years from now.
Mm.
So she was like, just learn your craft.
Yeah.
And literally 5 years from that point, I became the first Black person to ever be named Michigan Press Photographer of the Year. And it was funny because she came in my desk. She was like, it's been 5 years. And we kind of chuckled together.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I could just see the rawness and the talent. She was like, I knew you weren't necessarily there, but I knew she was like, I was smart enough to hire you, and like, we could shape you into what you needed to become.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm just thankful, like, throughout my life, man, there's been people who, I mean, with no credit to myself, it's just been people they've been in the gap. You know, they've been there to say, like, he might not have everything, but like, let's put him in a situation where we can be prepared for everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, you got to have like those type of people in your life that's, as we used to say in the newsroom, we call them a rabbi. You know, everybody needs a rabbi. Everybody needs somebody that's like on their side to help propel them to greatness. And I've had those people every step of the way, like even beginning in middle school. Kathy Williams was my middle school art teacher. She stayed out to school with me almost every day for 3 years, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, every day almost.
Mm-hmm.
And what helped me draw, print make, all these different things. And she told my mom, she was like, I think he can really be an artist, like, and I want to help him.
Yeah.
So without those type of people, you know, you don't really get anywhere without that type of help in your life. And I've just been like super grateful for everybody.
Yeah, and so that's a great segue into the title of your show, Up from Red Clay, and you, you know, dealing with work sort of dedicated to family, community, memory. I want to take a different approach though in asking you about the exhibition, because the first thing that struck me was the title, and the work that you know, were posting. And like, other than Black in your exhibition, you primarily worked with 3 different Reds. And, you know, seeing the Red made me think of Freddie Hubbard, then A Tribe Called Quest, you know, and a blissful sound and warmth. But what was your sort of your methodology for selecting Red, you know, in the Reds that you chose in particular, were they just a means to an end, or did they have some sort of deeper significance?
Man, I love you. Only you would think about Freddie Hubbard, a great trumpet player and the hip hop samples. And
yes.
You know, the red clay, like, just thinking about it initially just signified, you know, where I'm from, being from North Carolina. You've been in the American South, the dirt is red, it's red clay. And, you know, growing up as a kid, we would go outside and you would play and you would come back. Your shoes and clothes would be red, like you'd be covered in sediment. And I just thought about that, and just thought about my family's foundation is in that red clay. And I don't normally work in colors. Like, this is my first time ever doing stuff in colors. Like, you know, everybody knows, like, I'm either drawing or it's just black and white printmaking.
Right.
But I wanted to kind of signify the red clay, but I also wanted to signify a little bit, you know, kind of hidden, the climate of America, like the temperature, the heat that we face in our community. And so that kind of was like parallel to like the title Up from the Red Clay, like thinking about all those things that my family kind of heaped together and molded for us to be able to make it, you know, from North Carolina. And a lot of my family ended up in Detroit. That's why I was so kind of familiar with Detroit as a kid, because my grandparents moved from North Carolina to Detroit like in the late 50s. And so I would spend a lot of my summers on the east side of Detroit and, and spending time with them and just seeing how Detroit and Baltimore, which was the other place my family moved, like gave them a chance at a better life. I remember when my grandparents moved up here, and it was funny. They really wasn't moving here. My grandfather's brother moved up here, but he moved to Mount Clemens, which was super rural at the time. It was actually rural in the 80s when I was a kid and we would visit. It was like farmland. And his brother William was a farmer. In some kind of way, he moved to Mount Clemens from North Carolina. And my grandfather said his brother called him and asked him could he come help him for a couple of weeks. And he came up and he helped him for a week. And in some kind of way, my grandfather like got a part-time job at Ford when he was here. And he said he got his first paycheck. And I was like, what happened? He said, I called your grandma and told her to get a bus ticket. And if she wasn't coming, that was the end of it. He said that first check he got was more money than he made in like 2 or 3 months in North Carolina.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So
yeah.
he never came back. My grandma got on the bus and she moved up here, and eventually they got a house. And then what they did was everybody in our family moved up here, lived with them so they could get a house, and they would move out. And then the next person would move in. And then they just kept doing that until all their siblings got to Detroit.
Yeah.
It's funny now because they all moved back to North Carolina. They all got jobs and
I know,
pensions.
we're all going, everybody's going back.
As soon as they retired, they like headed right back. Because when I moved to Detroit for the job, they all moved back at the exact same time. And I was like, everybody leaving. And I'm coming up here, to make my bones, and everybody's going back. And so I just thought about that sentiment when I had the sentiment when I had the title. And Melannie can tell you, like, I've had that title for like 2 years. I've been telling her about Up from the Red. I'm one of those people that, like, I'll plan a body at work and and it'll be years away. Like, I got show titles for things that are like years out. Because I'm always kind of like front ending my thoughts on like what's next type of thing. And, so I was already going to do that type of work, but then like COVID really pushed me into it because I haven't seen my family in like a year and a half. And I was like, man, you really got to do this family narrative work because I was homesick. I was missing people. My mother got diagnosed with cancer during COVID, and I hadn't seen her. I still haven't seen my mom since she had surgery and, had her cancer diagnosis, because she had a compromised system. So we, nobody was, could be around. And so it really pushed me to want to do that type of work. Because I think one of the things that COVID really, pressed upon us in our minds is just how fragile life is and how important family and friends are. And because I've lost like 10 people to COVID that I know personally. And so that was one of the things that kind of was like, okay, you really got to do this. And like, my research was like all going to be based on me going home and doing a research, but I couldn't do that because of COVID. And so me and my grandmother just started a dialogue about the show and, talk constantly a couple times a week. And I had her looking for photos and researching. And then I think she just got tired of my ass because she's like 80 years old. And she just sent me all the pictures in one box. Like, it was like 600 photos. She was like, now you are the keeper of the family photos. It was just kind of like, don't even send them back. Just keep them and like, do whatever you need to do with them. And it's great though, because I was able to organize them, and I bought like 12 photo albums. So I kind of organized them by like cousins and aunts and uncles. And then I organized one that was like Up from the Red Clay. Like, these are things I want to think about working with. And then I kind of still kept narrowing that down. Until I got like the things that I wanted to like to focus on. And and then like I knew I wanted to do like the printmaking on top of the red, but I also wanted to do some monotype printmaking, which I hadn't done since college. And I already done like one. And I just wanted to do something, because this is like the fake painter in me. I'm not a painter. Like, that's for you and Mario and Chris Batten and Tylon and Sydney. That's for all those people who are like amazing painters that I know. So, Greg Johnson is on here. He's like an amazing watercolor painter. Like,
yeah.
I ain't gonna never try to fake like I'm a painter. So the monotypes allow you to have that like painterly effect, but with printmaking. And so it was a way for me to put a brush in my hand and still feel somewhat comfortable in it. And it was like, and I like it because it's an immediacy to it. Like, it's just, you painting on glass and you putting the paper on it, you pulling it up, and what's there is there.
Yeah.
Ain't no coming back from it. It's just kind of, it's just what it is. And so I wanted to do, some of that stuff and bring that type of approach to the work. And the third red color that I used was the crimson red, which is like the blood red, and kind of like signifying like the bloodline. Those were the drawings,
right?
And because there wasn't going to be any drawings, and I told Melannie, I was like, I feel like I got to do a drawing or two, like, because I feel like when people come to a show where they see my name on something, they expect to see a drawing.
Yeah.
And it's like this weird understood thing, because like I've had things where people are like, man, you didn't draw anything. I was like, wow, like I feel like I let people down.
Like you let people down.
So I was like, I want to do like 2 large drawings and just so they're there, and it was and that was the thing where I was like, I had a picture I identified that was like super. All these pictures were like from the 80s and before, so they were like tiny, like these little 4x5, like little tiny pictures.
Yeah.
And I identified one I wanted to do with my great-grandparents sitting on the floor couch that they had, and I called it Before the Throne because I always felt like they were the royalty of our family. Like, I felt like, you see this a lot in Black community in general, but I just felt like they were what people kind of worked hard for, because like you never wanted to let them down or embarrass them,
Right.
Because that's always that type of thing growing up that my grandparents and parents would tell me, don't embarrass me. It was never about what you was doing. It was like, do not bring no shame to me or my family or my family,
right?
Or, my mom and them would be like, if I ever had to come to that school,
right?
Because it was like embarrassing to come to the school for like any other reason besides a PTA or something. And so, it was kind of, that's why I call it Before the Throne, because it's like they are royalty in my, and we don't have a throne, but we have this floral couch that everybody probably had in the mid 70s to mid 80s.
Right. So
I wanted to show that.
I have to ask you about this. The Ghost at New Bethel is that is my favorite piece. Like, as soon as I saw it, I got giddy. Like, I got goosebumps and excited, started dancing a little bit. But whenever I see like a church fan, I think about the church I grew up in, St. Stephen's AME. I think of artists like Kerry James Marshall and his use of the fan, Ben Jones, even Carrie Mae Weems and some of her work. There's just a feeling that I get. What is this piece about? And I'd like for you to kind of touch on the obvious and besides the obvious.
So first, let me tell you that I have a thing. I've always had an obsession with church fans, and I've always wanted to do a lot more with church fans, and there'll be a lot more to come with church fans, as you'll see in the next year or so of my work. But I actually have a collection of old church fans in my house that I'm like always buying off eBay and like scurrying around looking for like church fans. And I just got the one with JFK, MLK, and Robert F. Kennedy, as we refer to them sometimes as the Holy Trinity. I just finally found that one, like, after looking forever, and I think it was like $35 from somebody in Texas on eBay. But that's the one piece that's really not a photo reference from anything. It's just a drawing. And it's called A Ghost of New Bethel, and the ghost I'm referring to is the Holy Ghost. Some people just like, who's the ghost? I'm like, it's the Holy Ghost. It's the Spirit. And New Bethel is the church that my family went to, and my grandparents. They went to New Bethel Baptist Church in Warrenton, North Carolina. That was the first place I actually saw people, like, as they say in the church, being slayed in the spirit, like falling out. And it was somewhat scary because you as a kid, you don't know what's going on. You just people falling out in the middle of the aisles, and you seeing women like, and they're like got their hands in the air and they fanning. But the part is my favorite part of that piece that people don't really pay attention to is if you look at her hand, it's a handkerchief. Because there was always a tissue or a handkerchief with the fan. And so it was kind of one of those things where, you know, I just wanted to kind of like show people something about like my upbringing and just kind of the stuff. I don't know. I might can share it too. I got like a real clean image of it on my computer.
Okay, you want me to stop my share?
Stop it and I'll see if I'll pull it up. But,
okay.
And I can like pull up.
Yeah, it just occurred to me to pull it up so people could see what we're talking about.
Yes, just give me like 1 second to open it. But it also talked about the heat in the churches, you know, and the red and the heat, and there's no air conditioning. It's just like being in church all day, like growing up where like I was telling somebody we would go to Sunday school and then you would go to like, you would take a little break and then you would go to regular service and then you go in the basement and eat and then come back up for a 3 o'clock service. And it was like an all day thing. And it was just, you know, kind of like pointing to some of that, that culture of like growing up like that. Can you guys see that? All right. So I'll this is the ghost of New Bethel that we're talking about. So you see the handkerchief in her hand, but also when I drew it, it was kind of it was just a regular fan. And then I started thinking to myself, like, I need to tie it right to our culture. And that's when I decided to draw Martin Luther King, because I'm like, everybody I know has some type of connection to that exact fan. That was a fan that you would always see. And so that was where it came from. And it's funny because when I finished it, I told Melannie, I'm like, this might be the first piece of my own art that I might put in my house, because I don't have any of my art in my house. I got art by everybody else but me. There's nothing in my house that's mine. And I was like, it reverberated with me on that level where I was like, I might actually put this in my house. And it's kind of a companion piece with I Know It Was the Blood, which is a reference to a great cousin of mine's baptismal. And a lot of the times in North Carolina, we were getting baptized in streams and rivers and creeks because there was no baptismal pools like the churches in the city had. And the other interesting thing about it too was going to church with my grandparents. They only went to church on the 1st and 3rd because it was in a little small town. And so they shared a preacher with another church. So he preached at another church on the 2nd and 4th. Because the little church they went to couldn't sustain his salary.
Yeah.
And so my grandmother would go every week because she would go to the other church on the 2nd and 4th, but my grandfather only went on his Sundays.
Right.
But she would go like every Sunday, you know, and a lot of times he would eat at my great grandparents' house after church. You know, she would rush home and start cooking because the Reverend was coming over there. And that was like a big thing for like, you know, the preacher to come to somebody's house to eat, and that was like an honor. So I remember how like that was one of the only times that you could sit in the front room, you know, sit on the plastic couch because all the furniture was covered in plastic. You know, we only used that room for like Christmas.
Right.
Like Christmas was like the only time, or like out of town company or the preacher. And so a lot of it's just about like growing up the way I grew up, and like, and I knew when I did the work, it would be very familiar to people, especially in the Black community.
Yeah.
Like this one is probably one of my other favorites, which is Black Love at the County Fair. And this is my grandparents in a photo booth at the county fair in the late 40s. And it was like a little teeny picture, man. Like it probably was shot with like, I don't know what it was shot with, but that picture was super tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember asking my grandmother, they wrote their names on it. And I'm like, why did y'all write y'all name on it? Like, y'all know who y'all are. Like all these pictures she sent me got people's names written on top of the pictures. And I'm like, but I guess that was a thing back then.
Right, yeah.
Because they, you know, it'd be a picture of you and it'd be like Senghor, and you'd be like, I know that's who it is. Like, why are y'all writing on the photos?
Let me ask you one. Let me get in one more question here.
Go ahead.
While we're looking at these images, so printmaking, especially when dealing with relief printing, can be a very physical activity.
Yes.
Did you find that there was a relationship between the physical nature of the medium and your subject matter?
Oh man, all the time. Like that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons I did it, and particularly about my family. Most of my printmaking tends to talk about my family. Like the drawings tend to. It's weird. The drawings tend to speak to social injustice more,
Mm-hmm.
and the printmaking tends to tell more stories about my family and narratives that are personal to me. And I think it's because the printmaking is so cathartic because you're redacting things and you're digging and you're carving, and it's a very physical nature to it. And I think it's very helpful when you're going through those spaces, because I mean, I don't know about you, but most artists, and I mean, I know like I'm that way, like my mind is like an ongoing hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had to kind of figure out how to shut myself down sometimes. I mean, I was up to 6 o'clock in the morning last night trying to learn how to needle felt.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
I just have like very I think we just curious people as artists. It's like I just always want to learn something new, and I'm always like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And now, I mean, I started doing it, and I looked up, and I'm like, so this is what I needle felted a bulldog, like half of one. So I've never needle felted in my life, but I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Didn't you just post a picture of that or something?
yeah. So
I
when I
was
was in
trying to
New
figure out what that was.
So yeah, when I was in New York, I just bought some needle felt supplies, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. And I looked up, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning. I was like, dude, you gotta do better, man. You can't be doing this with your time. Like you can't be up all night because you got obsessed about making a dog out of felt. But I felt like it would be something cool to like, because my family's not with me, so it's like I got a lot of downtime after the studio program here. So I'm like, wanted to learn how to do it, but I've always been, and it goes back to my show, the piece Tapestry of My Soul, the biggest printmaking piece that's made to be a patchwork quilt.
Yeah. Yep.
I've always had this obsession with textiles and fabrics and wanting to learn how to quilt. And my grandmother just was like, my nerve's too bad to teach you. Old people always say that, my nerve's too bad. It's like, they really don't want to be bothered with messing with you about trying to teach you something. But she has like 6 or 7 sewing machines, and I would watch her make these patchwork quilts and make clothes. She made a ton of clothes for us growing up. And so I was just thinking to myself, I was like, man, wait till I get back to Detroit. If I ever get a sewing machine in the studio, y'all gonna have to watch out.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna be in there going insane, like trying to print on fabrics and making quilts. And I have like all these areas in my mind where I want to go to for work. And a lot of it, I think, is textile and fabric based because of watching my grandmother and growing up in North Carolina. It's like, outside of tobacco, that's our major thing is textiles.
Mm-hmm.
Half the people in my hometown either worked at a cigarette factory or they worked at Hanes, making underwear and t-shirts and socks. And that was like North Carolina's cash crop was, textiles and furniture. A lot of people know North Carolina for furniture as well. And so I think all of that just kind of seeps into you when you're growing up around that stuff. It's like you can't. It's like, you grew up with a mother that's an artist, a dad that was an art collector, historian. It's like, it's going to get to you some kind of way.
Right.
Like whether it's being necessarily like put in you directly or if you just seeing it.
Yeah. Right.
And so I was just looking at those quilts and I was like, man, I want to make quilts like Grandma and Big Ma. And I remember those quilts had so much warmth to them and so much, you felt stable. I mean, you felt stable for one reason because you couldn't get the damn quilt off your ass when they put it on you because it was so heavy. Because they made it out of like old t-shirts and rags and towels, like, and she would cover you with the quilt. And you, as a kid, you couldn't even lift it up. It was like it was the original weighted blanket. Like you just be trapped in there.
Yep. Yep.
And so, I've always wanted to make one of those because I always thought it was very cool how they would take the scraps of what was left, whether it be. Man, it was oven mitts, t-shirts, towels, jeans, like just whatever was around. And it turned into a quilt. And it also, gave you the ability to reflect on your station in life, because you could look at the quilt and see pieces of your life.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was
yeah.
my granddaddy's old shirt or this person's this, or, you know, you can see these things in it. And so I've always had a fascination with it. I just never had the outlet in college to learn. I mean, the only way you learn how to sew and quilt at North Carolina Central was you had to be a fashion textile major.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
was a fine arts major, you know, and I had a concentration in printmaking and drawing. So
you got it.
know,
You have to get that education now.
yeah, you got to figure out which lane to take. It's like
Yeah.
I think now it's more freedom in that, where, you know, places cramble, other places you can kind of bounce around, but back then it was like, I need to get out of here. Like, I can't be over in some other department messing around, taking a bunch of classes.
Yeah. You had to do one thing or the other.
Yeah, you know, you kind of had to
Yeah.
pick a route. And, you know, my tribe, you know, people like you, my tribe of people were in the art department. That's where I found my tribe at. And
Right. Yeah.
that's where I stayed at. You know, I spent most of my time there around those people, and having that. What we're doing now is what I miss, because when you were in college, you had that energy exchange with people that you don't necessarily have as a professional artist, because you're working in solitude. But in college, you go in a studio and everybody will be in there. You will meet up and everybody's working on their thing, and you can get this feeling and this feedback. And it was
synergy. Yeah.
it was amazing. You know, you looking at the person next to you and it's pushing you harder, because you're like, shit, Rodney ain't gonna outdo me today. Like, you know, you thinking about the crits that's gonna happen next, you know, down the road. And it's hard to get that synergy when you like working by yourself as an adult.
Right.
And you really don't appreciate it when you're in college, because you don't think you'll necessarily need that.
Yeah. So speaking of art departments, where are you now and what's next?
I'm in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, at the International Studios, the Tutorial program, which is mainly it's an amazing program. It's mainly artists from all over the world, mostly international. There's three artists right now from the United States in house. Me, Lauren Kelly, Pamela Council was there, but mostly there's my neighbors are from the artists on either side of me are from the Netherlands, South Africa, Vietnam, Mexico, Siberia.
Wow.
So it's cool to be in this mix with these artists and see how they're working, and, you know, and having this type of exchange. And it's interesting, like, sometimes talking about my work and like the social injustice narrative of it, talking about the social justice like narrative, because that's not necessarily a narrative in other countries. So when you're presented and they're like, it's cool, but I kind of don't know, because I live in Siberia. It's like, I don't know what I know, but I don't know what he's talking about. And so, so when I'm looking at their work, it's cool too, because I'm getting a different vibe, because I'm like, man, this is awesome, because I don't really know. And like one of the people there, Daniel Ramos, who's from Mexico, we became friends. Like, he's doing all this work about what it's like to be a Mexican immigrant in America, and having your family move you from Mexico to America only to be trapped by some other system. And so he has a whole different interesting take on things. And it's like, I'm enjoying that. I'm working on some drawings while I'm here. I'm actually in a group show in New York in June that's curated by Charles Moore from Detroit.
Oh, sweet.
Who just wrote the book about collecting and buying Black art.
Okay.
And so it'll be a collection of contemporary artists from all around the country. So I'll be working on that piece while I'm here. And then as soon as I'm back, I'll be at the University of Michigan. I'll be at your old stomping grounds working as a milling artist in residence for a solo show there in October.
Nice.
And that'll be kind of one of those surprising things, because it'll be a lot of installation in that show.
Okay.
And it won't be so much drawing. And then the next step after that is a solo show in February, Arts League Houston in Houston. So my first time in the Southwest. And Melannie will be helping me with some of that stuff. And then I'll come back, you know, in the summertime 2022 for a big show in Detroit that Melannie is going to be spearheading. So I'm feeling good about things, and and all this will be new work. It won't be work that people are familiar with. I think these next 3 shows are a lot more sculpture and installation based. So it won't be as many drawings. It'll be a lot of things that I'm going to be working to have to fabricate along with other people.
Beautiful.
And so I'm taking I'm trying to jump off that cliff, man, and and grow some wings on the way down and challenge myself in that realm of sculpture. Look, even that little felted dog in sculpture, like how many little layers went into this thing. So it's just, and fighting back some of those demons from college when I was really horrible in sculpture class in 3D. And I never knew why. I just was like, I don't know. I think just then I was so consumed with drawing that I didn't, as my professor would always tell me, you committed yourself to drawing and nothing else.
Yeah.
He would always tell me that's why you can't paint, because you don't commit to painting, you commit to drawing. And so trying to do other things.
So your installation is gonna have a bunch of woven dogs, some big Tiana buoy size prints on the walls.
it definitely might have some of them Tiana buoy type prints, but it's gonna be a lot more like wood and metal.
Okay.
And that
Nice.
type of thing, where it's it's moving into like some standing steel structures and those types of things. So I'm super excited, man. And then my hope after that is to go to grad school, man. It's to like take a break from the system, from the art world system for a minute and go to grad school. Because as you know, or my close friends know as well, like my end game has always been to teach.
Right. Yep.
And specifically teach at a HBCU or a small college, because
that's something you said when I first met you.
Man, I've been telling people. People think I'm joking. Like, people are like, "Oh, you just saying this?" I'm like, dude, I've been saying this for like decades.
Yeah.
I just took that route to become a photojournalist and didn't go to grad school right away. But I always, in the back of my mind, as I tell people, envision myself as Dwayne Wayne with that leather saddlebag, walking across campus, like trying to give kids, their best life, and trying to get them the instruction that I wish I had. I had great instruction. But what I missed, and what I think, and it's not just a HBCU or a black college thing, I think it's with a lot of schools and with art students. They teach you how to draw. They don't teach you how to survive in the world. They don't teach you how to get in the shows. They don't teach you how to frame. They don't teach you how to present stuff.
Right. Yeah.
They don't teach you how to apply for grants. All those things you got to learn to survive. Is like, I'm like, man, that's a bigger portion of what I need to know once I'm out here floundering.
Yeah. Right.
It's not so much like, I'm looking at myself like, well, I can draw. That's great and all, but how in the hell am I supposed to ever find a gallery or get into a show or write a grant, or because you don't learn those things.
Mm-hmm. No,
and so I just want to go back and be able to impart that stuff to like students. And, my big thing is I want to like sit back 20 years from now and be like, look at Megan so-and-so, like she killing it. This is the best student I ever had. You know how they talk about coaches when they say the coaching tree.
Yep.
I want my artist tree to be so much bigger and better than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my dream for myself, is to like create a whole nother genre of artists that are better than me and did better than me and was able to take the ball or, take the baton and, run it just a little bit further than we did.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. I just had a vision. We need one. We need a Detroit art tree. Like,
bro,
like
you already, I tell you and Chris Batten all the time that y'all are really living my dream. I tell Chris that all the time, like, man, you went to Micah, you teaching, you teaching at Cranbrook. Like, there's things that like, Mario teaches, Tylon, there's things about representation and imparting things in the people that's so important. Like, you're making me get emotional now because I always feel that way. Like, I feel so.
Yeah, you got that passion.
I feel so passionate about.
Yeah.
Somebody that looks like you teaching you and helping you, because that's really the only way you can truly see it.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for like Hugh Grantham and people like him, I would have never believed I could do that job. But when I saw him, I was like, okay, he did it, so it's possible for me to do it. But when you don't have people that look like you or come from your background that's reaching back, it makes it seem like it's unattainable on some level, and it's not. It's just that's just so important to have. Gregory, all these people who are teaching. Kathy Williams, I mentioned her, my middle school teacher. She was a Black woman. Like, she was the first Black artist I knew. And I looked at her and I was like, I loved her, like, for taking that type of time with me and just giving her, giving freely like that. And that's kind of one of those things where I'm like, I just want to teach and mind my business, man, and make somebody else better than me.
Yes.
And just like, I want them to go forth the same way you hear the passion when you hear Kerry James Marshall talk about Charles White.
Yeah.
And you hear him talk about, he brings up Charles White all the time because of the impact that he had on him. And it's like, I just want to like do that for the next person. I've done a lot of that in photojournalism. I've gotten people jobs. I've helped them start their careers. I got a text out of the blue from a kid the other day that I helped in high school, and I really was working with him a lot in high school. And he just texted me like, "You changed my life, whether you know it or not."
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
He just got his first job as a photographer at the Associated Press.
Nice.
And he was on his way to being an architect, and he like really had raw talent. And I just worked with him as much as I could. And that really, like, I shed tears when I saw that text, because I was like, man, he made it.
Yep.
If I can leave but put 3 more in my space, I done did my job.
Yeah. Oh no, that's awesome. It is a great feeling. It is a wonderful feeling when your students do well. And when you I'll never forget one of my classes. I was teaching AP Art History, and if Faith is still on the call, Faith may remember this. I was teaching AP Art History. This was like the worst class I'd ever had, and they weren't really listening. They were failing all the quizzes and tests and everything. I didn't know what to do. We went to the DIA on a field trip. Those kids knew all about the artwork. They were talking, engaging in discourse with the what do you call them? Like, I forget. The tour guides. I'm losing.
The docents.
The docents. Yeah. Thank you. The docents. They're hitting these vocabulary words. And I remember on the bus back, I'm like, where was all this last week when all of you failed the test? And they're like, well, we're absorbing it, Mr. Reid. We're just really not listening to you. So it's like, but having those beautiful moments where, you reach people, you reach young people, and you don't even realize the impact you're having on them until they go out into the world and they exemplify all the excellence you knew that they had within them and when they were in your classroom. So that's awesome.
When you talk about impact, like, I think the impact you had on me recently is going to see your work in the show that Mario curated at David Klein, and it made me get so excited about your shadow boxing show that's coming up. And I was so proud, dude. I was smiling like ear to ear, like I painted that stuff that you painted, and I had nothing to do with it. And I saw that you were shifting back to like your figurative work coming out of the body of work you had done on like water and different spaces and landscapes. And like, I just wanted to ask you, like, where are you going now with this next series of work with shadow boxing?
Well, 2020 for all of us. I always make the joke that 2019 seemed like a decade ago, and for so many of us, 2020 has been a time of major transition, transformation, and when quarantine started, you couldn't go anywhere. There was nowhere to escape, nowhere to run to. No distractions to kind of pull you away from yourself. For so many of us, for so many families, it was like so many parents met their children for the first time. So many people, had to sit in whatever it was that they were going through. And so, yeah, I mean, it had a major impact on my work, what I wanted to deal with, the subject matter I wanted to deal with in my work. And I realized too that I mean, all along, I think, and the same thing for you in many ways, and you talking about going through those family photos and then making this art. It was almost like you were visiting your family through the making of this work. And so I've been doing a lot of work on myself, going through therapy and, trying to learn how to be still and working through, working on myself, my shadow self through my work. And yeah, I mean, I haven't, I don't know, so much of my artwork is fluid, so the water is still there. But I have to, I want to continue to kind of incorporate uh, all of the different bodies of work that I've done in the past. I'm excited to see sort of when that happens for you, when the printmaking, the photography, the drawing really start to mesh. And for me, working with collage, working with paper, doing figurative work. I've always done self-portraits, and then dealing with water. And so all of those things are really starting to come together. I'm better understanding what all of those themes and subject matter mean to me on a much deeper, more subconscious level. And so to work, more in that vein, it's been powerful. It's been a powerful experience. And I at a certain point last year, I started to enjoy quarantine, because it was like I was moving forward as a human being, like I was growing, and transforming, and also getting to develop relationships, more one-on-one relationships with people. So often, well, for me, pre 2020, I feel like, we go out as a group, and conversations are very topical, and you're talking about what you're watching on Netflix and this and this and that. And last year was like, no, I was having very cathartic, long, deep conversations, one-on-one conversations with people, with friends. And I realized, I wasn't alone. We were all going through it, you know what I mean, together. And so brings me to my show. And I'll do a screen share. Let me see.
Yeah, you got to show those amazing paintings.
All right, I'll do a screen. All right, I know. I get shy about showing my work. I don't know why. But okay. Let me.
So good though.
Thank you. I wanna how do I get rid of, I always wanna, oops.
I'm trying to see if I can see it myself.
Oh, here we go. My computer's being a little slow. I'm doing a lot at the same time. Okay. So I'll just kind of pull these up. Can everybody see those? So like these are pieces that I'm sort of starting with pieces that were in the Familiar show at David Klein. And so one of the people that I got to sit down and have deep conversations with was my mother. And for the first time, I feel like I got to really talk to my mother as an adult, as a friend, and not as a son. And we were able to move into conversations that we had things we had never talked about before. And it was, and you look at your parents and no matter what, you look at your parents and your teachers, and you think that they never had a childhood, they were never young, you know, that they never did anything. And so, you know, you get all of this wisdom, you know, from having these conversations with them. And so also got to have a good interaction with several of my former students. This was a conversation I had with Ryan Wright, and we had a nice long 6-7 hour conversation about the meaning of life and energy, and you know, all kinds of other things we talked about. And one of the questions that I started asking, you know, my friends, you know, was, what's at your table? You know, right now in your life, you know, how are you, what's at your table? What are you dealing with? You know, how are you feeding yourself? How are you nourishing, replenishing, you know, yourself? And that became sort of a common conversation point. At some point I would ask, you know, whether I was with my cousins or whomever, you know, I would ask this question. And, you know, I always, you know, try to be as self-reflective as possible. And then that happened in a major way last year. And so I had to ask myself, Senghor, what's at your table? You know, what are you dealing with? And, you
Bro,
know,
hit the Zoom button on this
yeah,
one. You
oh
gotta let us see it. You gotta let us see this big.
yeah. And so I did a piece, it's called Wages of Fear. And it was about me dealing with, you know, me and my current state as an adult, and then my 4-year-old self, and then the shadow self of that 4-year-old, sort of splitting off there. And you know, I was in this space. This is my brother, my older brother behind me, and so I'm in this space where it's just me and me. And I feel like the first thing that I had to do, you know, as I was healing, was sort of revisit my source energy. You know, I had to sort of look at myself, you know, go way back, like, Senghor, who were you at 4 when you were uncorrupted, when you were innocent, when the most important thing to you was, you know, comic books. Well, you know, we talked about earlier, and finding strength in being yourself, you know, being, you know, this innocent young child ready for the world. And so yeah, and also I started working in oil again. I hadn't really worked in oil seriously since college. And whenever I would try to work with oil paint, it didn't handle like acrylic, and I would grow frustrated and quit, you know, and get back to my acrylic, my Liquitex. And so this piece, and then the one I did of my mom, I used oil paint. And so,
You know what's so powerful about this piece to me when I
yeah.
saw it was, one, it was because I knew it was the reckoning, you know, of you dealing with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw it, I saw the water, not in the background. I saw the water in the rug. When I looked at the rug, I was like, I see all the water paintings that he was doing before this. Like, I could
Yeah.
see how the water informed all of your work.
Yep.
And so when
Yep.
I saw this, I was just smiling ear to ear because I was like, man, he really putting the pieces together.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the little Optimus Prime tucked away was like a beautiful little nugget to the side of it. It's just an amazing, amazing painting.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, this is one of those paintings I wish it could come back home so I could enjoy it, because as soon as I finished it, it was out the door. So, but yeah, you know, it's totally an honor to be a part of that show. And you know, I'm so grateful to Mario for, you know, in his curating. You know, him selecting me to be a part of that show was just absolutely phenomenal. And now this is a more recent piece, and I, you know, finished this piece a few weeks ago. It's in a show down in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the SoCo Gallery. And it was a
You got to
show.
big it up, though. It's curated by Dexter Wembley. You got to big it
Dexter
up.
Wembley, right? Yeah, curated by Dexter Wembley. Again, super honored to be a part of the show, and so yeah, so this is me, and one of the themes that I sort of hit on that was a part of my experience in 2020 was the concept of the pearl, and the concept of the pearl being created by an enormous amount of pain and pressure. And so this
Wow.
painting for me is like I'm walking into 2021 with my string of pearls, a shirt, shout out to Stakes is High, De La Soul. But on my shirt, who are these people? I think that in 2020, as we looked across the country, it was like, who are these people? And what's wrong with them? And so, yeah, and I did this piece from a photograph that was taken at Halima Cassell's house in her backyard, as she was kind of getting her garden ready last year. And yeah, fireworks sort of symbolizing, sparking catalyst for the future. And so yeah, so this is, and this is also done in oil. And so yeah, so this brings us to, I have a couple pieces from my show coming up next month. This
so
is
good.
Thank you. Yeah, this is called Knife in the Water. I was thinking in this piece, I was, really thinking a lot about, what's below the surface. And I've always sort of done images of water from above, kind of looking down at the water. And I wanted to get in the water this time. And I wanted the viewer to be in the water, to experience what's going on underneath what we perceive as this beautiful surface of water. And there's someone back in here yelling sort of a warning to this woman who's walking out into the water. Just be careful, there are knives in the water. And so yeah, so there's this piece. It's another piece. This is called Army of Shadows #1, and this is in doing and engaging in shadow work is thinking about these 3 stages of engaging in shadow work, and the first stage being awareness. And so I have this book, and I'll have to show you this other image. The piece was inspired by this painting by Wayne Thiebaud, who's like one of my favorite artists. And this is a portrait he did of his wife, done in the late 60s. And I saw this image years ago, and I was like, man, one day I'm gonna make a painting like this. And so when I started this piece, it was kind of plain, like the Wayne Thiebaud. And I have to think about something one of my teachers, we're on the subject of teachers, one of my favorite teachers from Cass Technical High School was Richard Iskanian. And I remember doing this painting in high school of Lonnie Guinier, and I had this Art in America magazine with Lucian Freud portrait on it. And I was having trouble with the painting, and he was like, why are you trying to paint like Lucian Freud? And I was like, well, he's a big inspiration, and he's awesome painter. He was like, you're not Lucian Freud, and you'll never be as good as Lucian Freud, right? And that's how, and Mr. Iskanian would say stuff like that, not to put you down, but to like humble you, to say, back up. Who are you as an artist? What's your style gonna be? How do you paint? because you can't be him. There's only one of him, and you can't be the second. You know, and uh, so yeah, so you know, in looking at this Wayne Thiebaud painting, it was, you know, this whole canvas was mostly blank. It's just me sitting there, and I had to think about, you know, what are you really doing right now, Senghor? Like, you're really in a very introspective moment. You know, you've sort of stripped away the skin, you've stripped away the surface layers of yourself, and you're really examining who you are on a much deeper level. And so that was like the theme uh, of this piece. I'll go to this one next.
Oh,
This
wait.
Yeah, the other piece is, I don't have a recent photo of it, and it's at my studio right now. This is another piece in that series. This deals a little bit more with the concept of forgiveness, and you know, at a certain point last year, I remembered who I was. You know, and as I'm doing all those other paintings, and I'm remembering who I'm named after. I'm named after Leopold Sédar Senghor. You know, I'm remembering what kind of family I come from, my mother, my father. And so, like, in regrounding myself, um, you know, it was kind of that part of it was kind of easy, in that, you know, I was able to quickly get back to who I am, what I'm about, asking myself, what are my values? You know, who have I been, and who do I want to be moving forward? So this is a painting where I'm facing myself, and time, you know, time is ticking away, and but I've got my tools, got my pearls. You know, I've got my history behind me, and again, you know, moving forward, you know, through doing the shadow work. So yeah, I think that
Bro,
might.
these are brilliant. When you talked about your teacher, it reminded me of the same thing, and that's why we need those teachers like that. When I was at Central, I had a professor, Dr. DeBella. He was an Ethiopian artist and really well known in Ethiopia. He came to Central to teach, and he was teaching drawing. Primarily, that's all he taught. And you know, we had a project one day to draw a portrait. And you know, I'm 20 years old. I drew a portrait of Red Fox. I don't know why. Drew a portrait of Red Fox at Sanford and Son. Like, he legit looks like Fred Sanford. And I bought it in, and it was by far the best drawing on the critique wall.
Yeah.
And he just looked at it. He called me Chief. He said, "Chief, what is this?" He said, "What does this mean?" And I did the same thing. He said, "What does this mean?" I said, "I don't know." And he said, "You can draw. So what?
Hmm.
Like, what are you going to be about as an artist? What is your work going to be about?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dude failed me in that critique.
Wow. Wow. I guess
And
and he didn't like Red Fox, huh?
yeah, but I often think about it, and I later asked him about it, and he told me that giving me A's and giving me credit for work that had no depth will
Mm-hmm.
only do harm to me.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so I took that with
Yep.
me,
Mm-hmm.
and always kept it with me.
Yeah, yeah. I have to say, as a teacher, yeah, I don't allow my students to do drawings of famous people. You're either drawing yourself or somebody else in the class. You know, yeah, no pictures, no drawing from pictures or cell phones or any of that. Yeah, it has to be real. You know, and in some way, you know, I mean, and you know, you doing that was great. I mean, it advanced your skill set, but like you said, there was no depth. You know, it was paper thin. You know, and he knew that as you grew older, and you had to draw from real life, that Red Fox drawing was not going to really help you. You know, so yeah.
Man, I just got to commend you. Like, these are some amazing paintings, man. Like, this is
Thank you.
some of the best word. It just, it emotes. Like I can sense the feeling in you, and I can sense, especially like the knife in the water, where it's like everybody can attest to that type of thing, where you walking into something that's inherently dangerous, but you don't know it,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't always heed the warning to other people who know the dangers.
Right.
And they're warning you about the dangers, and a lot of times that's what makes us human, because we have to learn the lesson on our own.
Yep.
And these are just like amazing, like vulnerable paintings. Like I just can't wait for the show, because I'm just super excited about it. You gotta, as my grandma used to always tell me, and I always, that's like my favorite saying I heard always, when she would say, the grass always look greener, but you got to mow that yard too.
Right. You do?
That is always, it's always work to be done.
Yeah.
No matter what yard you in.
Mm-hmm.
She would always say it looked green, but it's got some grubs and some worms and some holes and dirt over there that you can't see from afar.
Yep.
So just remember, and my other grandma would always tell me, wherever you go, you will be there. So whatever crap you got, you bringing it with you.
That's
just because you change it. Yeah, she would always tell me that wherever you go, you're gonna be there. She said, whatever you got, just because you change spaces don't mean it's going away. You're gonna still have the same luggage when you get there.
You need, I agree, Melannie. You need a book of grandma quotes. We need. I agree. I agree.
You guys, I'm working on it all the time. I'm like, oh, you gotta add that. It's so good.
Yeah.
And so I saw that in your work when I thought about that, and I was like, there's so much unpacking in these paintings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The pearls, I would have never gathered that, man. That was so. The subcontext of that was so deep.
Yeah.
And even like who are these people? Like, it made me think, because it was red and blue. I'm thinking about like Democrats and Republicans and all the stuff we've been through. Like, I was thinking about it on so many different levels. It was just an amazing symbolism, because when I first saw it, I was like, what are the bees or what's going on? Then when you said it, I'm like, that's like, I think that's what we try to do as artists. And I tell people, it's the same reason I use pigeons. It's like, you don't want to have this overarching, like, in your face thing, but what you want people to do is lean into it. And then you can hit them over the head with the hammer. Because I'm leaning into it and I'm looking at it like, what are these necklaces? And then when you said it, I'm like, oh shit, like it took me like, that's the buttercream in the cake. And like, it took me to a whole different level, of goodness.
You have to. I like to add those kinds of things into my work, because and a lot of times, and I was telling a student today, a lot of times as artists, you have to, and yielding to the discomfort of adding something to a work and not really fully understanding it in the moment, but you know that it has to be there. And it isn't until after the fact, as you reflect. Because I mean, I had added those pearls way back, and it wasn't until I was like well into the painting, that I was like, oh, that's what these pearls are here for. For me, it was just a visual thing. I wanted to have them, but in reflecting, and that's why it's been so important for me doing this work recently, like I said, and engaging in this work on myself. It's just been a tremendous experience. And like my cousin Carmen would say, I continue to say thank you every day, for having this opportunity to have this talent, to be able to share it with people, and so many people that I love. And it's awesome. It's just wonderful.
I just enjoyed that, like, Melannie brought us together, because we always have these deep conversations when we go out. We spend hours talking to each other at tables, and I think we both are just very reflective people. Yesterday, when I was watching Wake Forest University purchase that large lino cut piece for their permanent collection for the university. And
congratulations, nice.
And I watched it with Melannie when they unveiled it, and dude, I think I cried for like 2 hours afterwards.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just like, it wasn't about the purchase. It was just more about the gratitude and like
Mm-hmm.
feeling grateful about something. But it also was more about that Wake Forest University, and most people don't know, it's located in my hometown where my entire family is at.
Oh, wow.
My family never gets to see my work. And so I thought about the day that my two 80-something-year-old grandmothers could stand in front of it when it's hung next
Wow.
semester at the school. And like, bro, it just brought me to so many emotions,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
thinking about it's going to be there long after I'm dead and gone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
so many generations of my family can see it. And it was one of those things that it just kind of put a stamp on things like that we were here,
Yeah.
that my
Yep.
family was here. And, we put a little stamp on something, it's just one of those type of things. And I think we always, like, as artists, like, I'm always truly grateful to like have this gift from above. Like, what we do as artists, I tell people it's got magic in it.
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
you to take a
Yeah.
blank sheet of paper and make something out of it.
Yeah. It's magical.
We know how we do it, but it's got some magic in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
No, it does.
always grateful for that magic.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful when I see other people's magic.
Right.
That's why we smile when we see each other's work, because we know the magic that go into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. You can feel it. It's palpable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have some
We're supposed to have questions. I
questions.
don't know. We
I
went
know,
on
right?
forever. Thank you,
I know,
guys.
right?
So long, so just because I know you. But someone wanted to ask, how do you guys negotiate scale, and what factors determine the size that they think a piece should be? That's from Chris Batten.
Oh, what up, Chris? I don't. For me, it's I don't know. It varies. It varies. Sometimes people will give you canvases. Sometimes it depends on what's on sale. Or if I have to build a canvas, it just kind of depends on not only what it is I want to say in the piece, but also what do I want this piece to do, and what kind of impact do I want it to have in any given space. And so sometimes what I want to say in a painting would work better on a smaller scale. Sometimes, you do things on a big scale and it just falls apart, and vice versa. Sometimes you have a lot of ideas, but you can't possibly pack them into a smaller surface. So, yeah, I don't know. What about for you, Rashaun?
I think for me, it's usually two things. A lot of times, I just kind of let the work dictate the size of it. Sometimes I make things really small because I want to force people to look at it, make you get real close to it and have to stare at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other reason, and Melannie can attest to this because this is like something I'm always really passionate about, is if you ever go see any show I do, you might see big pieces, but you might see really tiny pieces. And for me, it's a socioeconomical thing to where I want my people to have access to my art.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody
Yep.
can't buy a big piece. So whenever I do shows, I have really small pieces a lot of times because, I want the guy to drive the dot bus to get a painting, just like I want somebody who got money somewhere else to get a painting. It's like, because that's a lot of times the problem is, access. I mean, I remember watching my mother save money forever to buy Charles Bibbs print. I mean, it was like $700, and that was 20 years ago. And I just remember she was probably making $8 an hour, man. That's a lot of money. And it's like, I want people to have access to my work. And I just don't want it to always be in some space where nobody's going to ever see it, or in some museum, or access to, somebody who's got wealth. Like, you never know, that little drawing that or that smaller piece that you put in somebody's house might be, the pivot in some young person's life or some young artist's life to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think about that all the time.
Yeah, hitting, sort of trying to hit every price point or as many as possible, especially for an exhibition. Yeah, it's very important.
So that
That's
actually,
not always popular too. Some Melannie is always so gracious about it, but some galleries and other people, they don't always like for you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like they want you to kind of keep making big things or bigger things, and
Right,
I'm always
right.
like, you know, I want my people to have access to things.
Yeah, yep.
that actually
Definitely.
leads into another question, and it's that you both discussed the importance of having Black mentors and teachers. How do you hope your work impacts future generations?
Oh wow. I mean, I focus more so because, you know, I think that when everyone brings something different to your work. And for me, growing up watching my mom paint and watching Gilda Snow and Sabrina Nelson, Jocelyn Rainey, all these wonderful people who are on this call. And uh, these artists, especially in Detroit, with painters, always use bright colors. And, you know, like I know there was a period, for artists who were coming out of Wayne State in the 50s and 60s, the palettes were very, sort of bland and, coming out of like a German expressionist kind of thing. And I don't know, suddenly the palettes started to change with a lot of Detroit painters, starting in the 70s, I feel like. And so, for me, I don't know, I always want my colors to be very vibrant. I want them to grab people's attention, especially young people, because no matter what impact it has on them, I just want them to stop and take a moment to look at art and stop and take a moment to reflect. What is this piece? What is this painter doing? What they're doing mean to me? And oh my goodness, he looks just like me. He's from Detroit, from the West Side, Joy Road, like, and be able to relate, and so that for me, that's what the experience that I want young people to have.
I think a lot of what I'm doing, some of the stuff is kind of always kind of hidden to the side. Like in the last couple years, Melannie knows, but I don't really talk about that much. But I've been donating work to like Black colleges. I just donated a piece to Clark Atlanta University, and that's because I'm a product of a Black college, and I knew what it was like when I was there. And I know those universities and those institutions don't always have acquisition money like other people have, and I want those spaces to continue to be able to collect contemporary work. And I just try to make it so much more accessible. I remember growing up and I would get Juxtaposed magazine and I would look through it and I would never see anybody that looks like me, or I would always wish I was in there or wish I had some type of representation in there. And I remember a few years back, I was in a show in New York with Tylon and Sydney and Tiff Massey and a couple people, and there was a full page ad about it in Juxtapose, and I remember being like overwhelmed by it. And I remember making a post about it, and and I was saying that this is for anybody who's sitting in a small house in the hood in the middle room, sitting on a twin bed with a little TV, wishing they could be in Juxtapose. Like, it's possible.
Yep.
And so you just, that's why, giving people access is just, it's so important.
So
and,
important.
Sabrina is one of those people who really does it like on a magnificent level with her work with CCS and like the workshops she do. And I try to like do some of those things with MoCAD and other things, and I just want them to know that it's a possibility. You ain't gotta be an artist, but it's possible.
Right.
That's all
Yeah.
I want people to understand. It's like, you don't have to do it, but it's a possibility. And I think I came up in a time where it wouldn't even, I didn't know it to be a possibility. I didn't go to my first museum until I was in college. I didn't have access to a museum. There was nothing for me to go to in Winston-Salem, North Carolina to see art like that. And I just didn't have access. And And so you know, you never know, and that's, you know, why I try to keep that in the front of my mind, especially even with a lot of these young collectors or like athletes who are now collecting art. You got to realize that these are the people with millions of dollars who probably never been in the museum before.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
like getting their first exposure to art because they now have money, and it's probably somebody coming to them saying, "This is what you should be investing in."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my dream is always to try to make art so much more accessible for our community. That was one of the things that really like always upset me about Detroit, when they just would constantly take art and music out of the schools. And I'm like, a lot of our kids are visual learners,
Mm-hmm.
and that's their path. And if you don't have access to the path, then you get lost.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, there's a. Oh, go ahead.
You from Sabrina.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was gonna touch on that. Yeah, thank you for the question, Sabrina. For me, uh, no. So in terms of the reflective quality, in still water, no, no, yes and no. I don't think about the reflective quality as a way to reflect myself. For me, I get really reflective when I'm in the water. You know, I always want to immerse myself into the water, and you know, allow for the water to you know, rejuvenate, to replenish me,
To baptize you in a
to
way.
baptize me. Yes, right. Exactly. And while I'm in the water, I mean, I'm reflecting and giving thanks. You know, wait.
So it is reflective.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah. But
I mean,
not
we could play on the words, but I was thinking of like most of the paintings were they were very colorful, and the strokes were short and
Yeah.
bright, and so I was thinking some of the water was choppy, but most of it would have been like still water. It's not, you know, you're very much a contemporary impressionist. If I could give it a title in terms of impressionism and color and your strokes and how short and fast and thin and thick they are.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking your body is made up of water, and you're reflecting and doing shadow work, and you're in the water, but you know, the idea that you are water.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Which I'm glad you make that point, which is why you have that amazing experience when you're in the water. Your body feels like it's at home, you know, in many ways. And you can, and when you're at home, you can be whole, you know, and you can be your truest self, most robust self. And that's when you can really receive all of the messages, all of the light bulbs, you know, all of the subconscious thoughts that have been rolling underneath. So yeah, no, it's a great question. Yes.
I saw Sabrina. I saw Sabrina had a question about family legacy on my side, and I have a cousin that's a pretty well-known artist in North Carolina, Leo Rucker, that has work in the North Carolina Museum of Art. But I didn't really work with him until I got into high school, and it was more like I kind of knew where I was trying to go, and he was like a lot more helpful in that era. But I had an older cousin that lived with me. You know, a lot of us probably on this call, especially Black families, I lived in what they used to refer to as an extended household. You know, it was like me, my mother, my aunt, my two cousins, and an uncle, and my grandparents. And the older cousin could really draw. I mean, like, I consider myself a pretty good draftsman now, but I feel like he could probably draw circles around me back then, even now. And
We call that brother cousin, because I
yes,
of us, like I was born in the 60s, but we all had extended households where cousins would come up from the South, or some uncle would live, and grandmother, if you had a grandmother like mine, the door was always open.
same.
Yeah, that's
And
a brother cousin.
he was just like one of the most amazing draftsmen I ever knew, but he got lost in the shuffle, and he went to jail for a while, and it's just, so that's why, like, I think I have a lot of gratitude, because you just like, you know, yet for the grace, I could have been lost as well. And, you know, when I think about him, and and also probably my mother. My mother could draw a little bit, but my mother was kind of the one that pushed me into it. And I always tell people like it kind of became a thing about paper dolls because when I was growing up, I was a huge fan of professional wrestling. And back then there was really no wrestling toys. And I loved watching Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, and I would have my mother like draw pictures of them and she would cut them out. And then of course they would get messed up because I'm mangling them. And after a while, my mom she was like, draw your own wrestlers. Just get a piece of paper and draw them for yourself. And that was like kind of the beginning of my drawing, was like drawing wrestlers, you know, because my mother was like, you don't need me to draw them. You can draw them for yourself.
Yeah.
And
So what you're saying is moms are amazing.
Yes.
I'm
all day, every day.
yeah.
big up to your mom. Thank you for
Yes.
answering that question.
Well, thank you for everyone. Does anybody, are we wrapping up?
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
I have to acknowledge, thank you all for coming. I have to acknowledge all these wonderful people. I have to acknowledge one of my students, Melannie, is on the Zoom. And she's an amazing young artist in high school. She participates in the NCA Summer Student Art Program. And yep. And I see you, Chris. What up? Yana, if you're on the call, what's up? And thank you all for sharing this time with us. This is wonderful.
Same. I would just love to extend, like, you know, thank you to everybody that's on here, like all my friends, and see a lot of amazing people on here. Chris Batten, Mario.
No, we're family. We're actually family.
Family.
Mario.
Family.
And I
Gregory.
definitely have to acknowledge my wife, who was on here and her using her anime pseudonym down there. So her and the kids are like watching, and you know, I gotta acknowledge them and love them and for all their support and everything. And it's always awesome talking to y'all and sharing energy with everybody. And I see Scheherazade from the family on here, and it's just amazing to be on here with you people and just talking about what we love.
Yeah. And
I love the way that you guys expressed yourself together. I mean, it was like having an what do they call it? Like an artist. It's like a round table, but it's like an artist salon, if you will.
Yes.
So that felt really good. It's so great to see Christopher and Gregory Johnson and Jocelyn. I mean, and so nice for that painting to be behind Rebecca. I mean, it's just so amazing.
Yes. I was going to say
I just appreciate that.
We have to acknowledge our collectors, Becca and Carla, and also another collector, James. Haven't seen you in a while.
Cyrus. It's a lot of collectors on here.
A lot of collectors on here. Yeah.
Panama. A lot of collectors and supporters on here, and appreciating all that. And I think it worked well too, because me and Senghor are very similar people. Mm-hmm. We got the same type of kind of like flow in life, and you know, both creative, sensitive beings, and the whole nine. And every time we get together, we probably don't get together that much because every time it's like a 3 or 4 hour dinner. You know, it's like a very long talk. You know, same with Mario, same with everybody. It's like the talks extend. You know, the bandwidth is so heavy, and I'm just like, when Melannie was like, "Well, you want to do an artist talk?" And I was like, "We should just do it with Senghor and have like a double one, and we could just vibe off each other, and you know, and it'll be real smooth." And so I just thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Me too. You guys are so generous with your time. I think that's why you have so many people who love you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and big up to Juana. Like, I love Juana, curator Juana Williams, extraordinaire on the call, and amazing writer, amazing curator, just Black brilliance. You know, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. What's up, Alice? Mario, what up? Sharon, so many awesome people. Thank you all for being here. This is awesome.
I love you both. I love you, Josh and Rainey. We gotta have our talk soon. I missed your face, Christopher. You got a whole beard over there. I'm like, what happened to that little boy from Alabama that came back? You an old man now, G. What is I missed your face, boo.
I got gray hair too, so.
Okay. All right now. Look, Mario ain't gonna admit it. He's got one or two, but
He's like, nope. He's like, nope.
that's
Nope.
it's great.
Well, thank you guys. We're gonna I'm gonna actually put this up on the site. It'll probably be up tomorrow if anyone wants to revisit it or send it to someone they know. So thank you again for all your
Thank you. And thank you, Melannie.
And thank you, Melannie, for being such a gracious gallerist and friend and supporter and all of those things.
Easy, because you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.